Hey, it's Nikki. Before we start the show, I wanted to invite you to download a free resource that I put together for you as the listener. This is my gift to you. You can get it right now. It is the 17 buying signals. Now, I wrote a whole book about buying signals, and I wanted to put it into a really simple format that you can have at your fingertips or in front of you whenever you want to. So I took out the 17 buying signals from the book, put them on a simple PDF, also gave you the kind of what to do when you get a buying signal, and explain what a buying signal is. So that PDF is available for you as a listener to go and download right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/17. That's yoursalesmaven.com/17 so that you can start acting on these buying signals and closing more business. All right, when you're ready, let's start the show.
Do sales conversations make you feel awkward or pushy? It's time to ditch the outdated salesy strategies. Your guide, Nikki Roush, will show you how to combine kindness with selling skills to meet your prospects where they are, and in the process, how to up-level your influence and income. Learn how to earn business easily and effortlessly. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. Today's episode is a part of the Mastering Excellence series. This is a concept that comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. Once you understand the structure, you can then apply that same structure into your own life or business and get similar results and have excellence in your life as well. Today's guest is Michele Williams. Now, if you don't know Michele, let me tell you a little bit about her. Michele Williams is a serial entrepreneur and speaker on a mission to close the financial literacy gap for small businesses. Through her two companies, the Scarlet Thread Consulting, a client-facing coaching program, and Metrique Solutions, a robust financial software platform, she supports entrepreneurs to understand their numbers confidently. Michele is a champion for creative entrepreneurs, serving as a change agent to facilitate building scalable and profitable businesses. Michele's empowering work has been applauded by the Business of Home, Doma Studios, and the American Society of Interior Designers. Michele is also the host of the Profit is a Choice podcast. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nikki, for having me.
I'm so excited to dig in. The topic that we're going to talk about today is how strategy informs your day-to-day decision-making. And I've heard you talk about this, or I've heard it mentioned from you a couple times as a listener to your podcast. And I'm super excited to dig into this topic with you. But before we do that, I'm wondering, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience before we actually dig into the questions? Anything about you and your background that wasn't kind of mentioned in your bio?
Sure. So just really quickly, my background started with software development a long, long time ago. And so I worked for Dun & Bradstreet and built financial software applications for 10 years. And then I came home to raise my family. And then I started my first business in 2000. And then I bought and sold a company in 2009 and 2012. And so I've worked for small companies. I've worked for large companies. I've worked for medium-sized companies. And I've also owned my own company and just started a second one. And so I say that because I think that sometimes we might feel stuck, either stuck in corporate, stuck working for ourselves, or stuck within the business that we've built. And Nikki, I know as a coach, and you're talking sales and you're talking, we're never stuck. We just have made a set of decisions that have put us where we currently are. And so if we want to move into a different direction, we have to think differently and do differently. I'll tell you, I started my first corporate job in the 80s, and I would never have thought that 30 plus years later, that the business that I currently have would kind of be this coalescence of everything that I have done. And so nothing's been wasted, right? I've learned along the way. I've changed and morphed myself as a person, but also my business. And so I just want to open up with, as we talk about strategy, that there is a freedom within the businesses that we're building, that if we don't like something, we can change it. My tagline has often been, if you own it, you can change it. And so the first part of us making different choices and different decisions, whether it's in a sales process or a profitability process, is about owning, right, the fact that we get to make those changes.
I love that. I also love the way that you really beautifully outlined that you have brought with you and forward all of your experiences from your, first corporate job in the 80s all the way today and brought that into your business. I feel like a lot of times as entrepreneurs, and I know I did this when I first started my business until somebody pointed it out to me, we often dismiss some of our past experience and all of these strategies and solutions and techniques that we have. And we act like, as we're starting a business, like, oh, I'm new, I don't really know anything. And it's like, that's actually not true. Like, you know so much and you need to bring it forward and bring it into your business. And I think you beautifully outlined that.
Oh, thank you. I did the same thing, Nikki. I started my first company and almost had drawn a mental wall. I don't even know that it was quite intentional, but like that was my corporate life and this is my entrepreneurial life. And I have actually built a business, when I talk about finances and all of that, on taking large business ideas or just business principles and bringing them down to what I would call the micro business level, which is what many of us are. We're small businesses, but some of us are even micro businesses, the first 6 figures that we make. But it doesn't mean that the same business principles don't apply when you're starting out for the first time as an entrepreneur. And so I was able to now then bring in my education. I was able to bring in, the actual building of software. I was able to bring in even just the communication, to your point, that I had been able to do and how I thought through things to bring all of it forward.
I love it. I love it. All right. So we're going to jump into the mastering excellence topic, which again is how strategy informs your day-to-day decision making. So my first question for you, Michele, is if I had to stand in for you for a day, if I could be so lucky, I get to be Michele for a day, what would I have to do or how would I have to think in order for strategy to really be informing my day-to-day decision making?
So if you were to stand in, it would be really, I always go back to understanding. We've heard this so much, Nikki, but I want to say it really does make a difference. I think for me or for you to stand in as Michele or as anybody, the first thing that would inform my day-to-day is who is the company, right? What is the personality of the company? What is the why of the company? What is the mission, the vision, and the values of the company? And then I would want to know what is the most important thing to the company. Because if I know that while I may not make the exact same decision as you, I would move you in the same general direction that you're trying to go. Because if we are very clear on our mission, on our vision, on our big why, like why are we even getting out of the bed and doing this every day? What matters to the company is a set of values. Because we make decisions within our values, we make decisions within our why, we make decisions based on the mission, who we're serving and how we're serving them, and we're making decisions based on where we want to go, that long-term vision. If I know that about you or you know that about me, we could step in and at least manage for a short amount of time moving in the same direction.
Okay, so just for the audience's sake, I'm gonna ask you if I wrote this down and if I got it. So the thing that you're gonna need to know first and foremost is who is the company? What's the personality? What's the why? What are the mission, vision, and values of this company? And what's the most important thing?
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah. You know what's so important with that too, Nikki, is I think one of the places that we can. Let me speak for myself. Let me do it that way. I think one of the biggest challenges that I have had at any point in my life, especially within my business, when I either felt overwhelmed, confused, not sure what the next right step was to take a step back and repeat those things to myself. I keep them in a notebook. I make sure everybody on my team is aware of them. Some of my clients, we have them done beautifully and printed and put up, so that everybody in the company knows. It's kind of like saying we're all going to be on the same boat and we're going to row in the same direction. But if I don't give you a directional map, you don't know. So this just gives everybody the same information so that hopefully we're making similar decisions in the same ways.
That is fantastic. Okay. So what specifically would I have to do to behave like you if I'm stepping in for you and I'm really allowing that strategy to inform my day-to-day decision making? What do I have to do to behave like you?
One of the things that I always do is ask the big question, and I didn't make this up. I'm trying to remember the gentleman who wrote about it. It'll come to me in a minute. It's the gap and the gain. And so what that refers to is the gain is where I am compared to where I was. And the gap is the difference between where I am and where I want to go. And it's keeping those within tension. Because if we're always looking at where we've been, right, we're always looking backwards, fear can set in that says, I don't know if I can repeat that. I don't know if I can do that. If I am looking at what is the gap, then what I've done is to see the gap, I've got to know what that endpoint is, which is my vision. So if I know what the vision is and I know where I am now, that gap is the strategy. Right? Or that's where I build the strategy to get me from here to there. So recognizing that I've already gotten from way back there to where I am today. So that builds my confidence, that gives me skill, that gives me decision making that I can review from a historical perspective. So when I look at where I am now, so if you were to step in my shoes, it would be constantly looking at where am I today? Compared to where I say I want to go, and what is the gap and how do we solve it?
And also pulling forward the, like, where was I and where am I now?
Right. The learning lessons from the past. I think sometimes you made a point earlier about we can separate. I think it's very easy sometimes to separate where we've been from where we've going, but where we've been informs where we're going. That's also why no two people are building the exact same business, even if we were doing the exact same things. Let's say that, Nikki, you and I both did exactly the same thing. We still aren't going to be the same business because my experiences inform what I do. Your experiences inform what you do. You have a background in the neurolinguistics, which I find fascinating. That's not my background. My background is in financial development, but it's also in raising dyslexic, dysgraphic children and learning Orton Gillingham and all the different ways that people learn. I now take those 4 to 5 ways that people learn, and it informs my coaching style to move forward, right? I'm thinking, how do we kinesthetically look at our numbers? How do we auditorially think about our financials? What do we do visually and tactically and all those same types of things? So we don't have our life in categories. It actually builds. That's what I think makes age so beautiful.
I also think that there's a very NLP thing where it talks about digital versus analog thinking. And I don't know if you're familiar with this. And
I'm not.
So I don't want to derail us, but it's just something you said. Digital thinking is like yes, no, black, white. You have 2 options. It's like a light switch. You can turn it on or you can turn it off, and that's it. You can't do anything else. Analog thinking is like a dimmer switch where you can turn up the brightness like one click, one click, one click. And oftentimes when you're working with somebody, or, from a coaching standpoint, or just all of us, we tend to forget where we started. We just look at where we are today and then how much further we have to go. We rarely take a look back and go, look how far I've come.
That's right.
That when you can get people into analog thinking, that's where a lot of freedom happens. So I'm hearing you say these things and my brain is
that's
like
exactly
like
right.
crazy going, oh my gosh, I love the way you're laying this out. It's so beautiful. And this idea of that, in order for strategy to come into play here, into your decision making in your everyday, that you have to be able to look back and see how far you've come and all the things that led you to where you are, so that you can pull the good, the best pieces into where you're going and figure out, like, how far do I have to go and what's it going to take to get me there?
My brain just clicked when you said that, coming from an interior design background. I then see digital as black and white and analog as the shades of gray in the middle, right?
Yes,
And we do
100%.
tend to live in the black and white and not in the nuance. I think that analog, I call it the messy middle. It's the nuance of what's happening. I said to a client this morning who was worried about strategy going forward. She is going to be leaving town for the holidays, and she has a person going out on maternity leave, and we're like, she's feeling all the feels, right? And the first thing I said to her is, we can fall back on muscle memory, and muscle memory says you've done this before, you've strategized before, you have a plan. So that looking back, that muscle memory says we've made it with worse scenarios. We can certainly make it with this one, and then it builds your confidence. It kind of releases that stress, like you mentioned, Nikki, so that we can then focus on what's really in front of us and make decisions that are more logical and not as emotion driven.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Okay. So here's my next question. What are your goals when it comes to allowing strategy to inform your day-to-day decision making?
I think one of the best goals that I have is constantly asking myself, what is the impact I'm trying to create? What is the legacy I'm trying to leave? And if there were a billboard, would this be what I wanted on it? For example, if I am always thinking about the today and the now, it's easy to make decisions based on urgent and important. And I'm really trying to think more significant. And so what that means is at the end of my life, at the end of my career, at the end of my business, whatever that might look like, what is that I'm trying to attain? What is the legacy? What is the impact that I'm trying to make on people? Because if you think about it, I'm all about understanding the financials and making sure that we're making money at what we're doing. But the money that we make is actually a representation of the impact that we're having in a marketplace or in somebody's life, right? Mm-hmm. Money is no good to me if I've left a trail of tears and destruction behind me. I don't want that.
Right.
And so it's always about, what is that impact? Are people better after working with me and after me being with them than they would have been without it, right?
Right. Okay. So I love how you broke that down too. So what is the impact? What is the legacy I'm trying to leave? And you also mentioned this idea of a billboard.
For example, I ask my clients all the time, because we all get opportunities to do things, right? Nikki, people are coming to you saying, hey, let's collaborate. Can we work together? It happens. That's part of community and relationship. But when we're thinking about strategy, and I'm very Southern, so I'm just going to tell you that up front. But one of the things that if somebody couldn't hear it in my voice, one of the things we always say is, be careful the cart that you hitch your horse to. Uh-huh. So is that the cart is that the name? Our moms used to tell us when we were little, be careful who you hang out with, because you're going to be seen as very similar. Mm-hmm. I think of the billboard as the same way. If somebody were to put up a billboard for Michele Williams, what would I want to be known for in my business? And is this decision in front of me? Is this opportunity in front of me? Is this collaboration in front of me, allowing me to be known for what I want to be known for? So then that's going to tie into my impact and the legacy that I'm trying to build. Or is it going to be a billboard and I'm now going to be known for something that I don't want to be known for? Or I'm going to be connected in a way that is not leading me closer to where I have decided I'm trying to take my business.
So you had said something to me before we actually hit record, and I just keep hearing it over and over, or at least I'm recognizing it in the way that you are speaking about your thought process. You said that in college you had a college professor that pointed something really unique out to you. Do you mind sharing that? Because sure. It's so clear that this is such a skill set for you.
So my background is management information systems. So that was, we were like building software for, systems. And one of the things that he said to me was, he said, Michele, you have a unique ability to assimilate and to dissimilate, which means you can take all these pieces and make the whole. Like, I can see the whole from the pieces, but I can also take the whole and break it down into its pieces. And my brain quickly goes back and forth between the two, where most people come at it from one direction or the other. They either can take all the pieces and create the whole, or they take the whole and break it down. My husband is one that takes all the pieces and adds them together. But he doesn't normally, his way of thinking is not, let me think all the way to the end and then back up and determine all the little pieces that need to be accomplished. But my brain moves back and forth between that so naturally that sometimes I don't even recognize that I'm constructing and deconstructing and constructing and deconstructing.
I mean, I just keep I keep witnessing it is what I'm going to say when you're describing things and the way that you're talking about things. I was like, oh, here she is, this really big, and then looking back and breaking it down into the pieces and then taking these pieces and it's so clear that this is a skill set for you. Now, as a listener, and you just heard Michele say that most of us are probably better at one than we are at the other, or maybe we don't really even, we might lack skill set. So that is something for you to be aware of, is which part of it are you really good at? Are you really good at taking all the pieces and moving towards the big? Or are you looking at being able to look at the big and break it down and figure out all the pieces that you need to get there? Whichever one you're lacking, that's where you go and seek out some guidance. That's where you go and get some coaching, or that's where you find somebody who can build on that with you in the other direction, because it's such an important thing. Michele has a really unique skill set and that she can do both. So, okay.
Can I say one thing about that, Nikki,
please,
before we move on? I think the reason that it is so near and dear to my heart to even think about this is we sometimes take strategy and make it so separate. We do our strategic planning and then we put it on a shelf and we leave it alone. And next year we pull it out and we see how we did, versus making that, if you will, an analog document that we can use in the day-to-day. In other words, we're saying, here's the strategy, but I'm not going to make this beautiful strategy or vision for my company and set it aside. I'm going to actually make it something that I use. And so it may be tattered and torn. It may be scribbled on a napkin. I'm totally cool with that, because that means it's being used and loved on and worked with. And we never accomplish the goals that we've set out at the very last minute. Like the night before, we cannot accomplish a sales goal for an entire prior year. That's usually not the way it works. It's a day-to-day, just keep going in the direction that you're trying to go in. And it's an accumulation, just like we talked about accumulating our skill set and our knowledge and our confidence. When we reach these goals, it's a day-to-day, sometimes minute accumulation. It's like looking at your kid when it's time to put their jeans on to go to school and you're like, they're 3 inches too short. But we didn't notice that they were growing, a millimeter a day for the last 6 months. We noticed it when we put on the pants. And I think that's the same thing that happens. We're growing and we are attaining every day. It's just, are we attaining towards the goal that we set, or are we attaining in a different way?
Do you think that is then a lot around intention and being really clear?
Yes.
Because this is what we're talking about, is how strategy informs your day to day.
That's right. You
really do have to pull out that tattered piece of paper or that, strategy that you have on the napkin and apply it.
Yes.
Like over every day, apply it over and over again and be asking yourself, is this moving me towards my goal or not, right? Just like how you talked about who you collaborate with and all of that.
I'll even make it very personal. We're not even just talking about strategy informing our day-to-day for the business, but we're actually talking about strategy informing the day-to-day for the people that we're becoming, because we're becoming different people every day, right? I have 2 sticky notes in front of me that are part of my strategy of moving forward. One says, I want to be kind, soft, and curious. And I put it on a sticky in front of me so that I can remind myself in those moments where I feel like either attacked or I feel like, something's stirring within me, be kind, be soft, and be curious. I have over to the other side a whole sticky that says, I want to be a kind leader, a gracious manager, an active listener, a decisive action taker, and a supportive guide. So that is the strategy for who Michele's becoming, which also fits into the strategy of the company that I'm building. And so I just want to encourage us to not think about strategy as separate, but as inclusive of who we are becoming as people.
Well said. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I feel like just that right there was a little mini masterclass on how to really take what you've heard Michele saying, what she's been sharing, and really think about this in, I think, a much bigger way, and the importance of it when it goes down to identity.
Right.
You know, who do you want to be? And in order for you to answer that question, how are you going to show up?
That's right.
So clear.
And that's the billboard too, right? That's the billboard that we're trying to put up there. So if I am acting in a way that is contrary to who I want to be and contrary to the way that the person who's running my company should be acting, then that's not going to be the billboard I want put up, right? As part of my legacy and my impact and the way I make people feel. So it really all does tie together.
Okay. So what do you do to course correct? Let's say that you're, moving along here, things are going well, but something happens and you feel like you've just derailed, whether you didn't act in the way that met kind of your strategy of who you want to become. What do you do to course correct?
Well, I think the first thing that we do and that I try to do is have an awareness, right? I think I'm going to go back now, I'm going to go be studying on digital and analog. But I think when we do digital thinking, then it's like we've either screwed up or we got it right. Analog is mean it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's usually where most of us are. So I think the first thing to do is to recognize that we're human. Like just because I've stated this on sticky notes and I'm trying to, it doesn't mean I'm going to have perfection. So what I want to aim for is a higher level of attainment than maybe I had before. So owning that I make mistakes, making sure that I go back and I say, I'm sorry. Like really owning it is also saying, I'm sorry I messed up, or I'm sorry that was offensive, or I'm sorry that was not stated in a way that I think is community building or relationship building, like, if it were about that. Mm-hmm. Or I'm sorry, our process broke down. And not only are we going to correct this for you, but we're going to take the ownership and go back and actually fix the process. I think just owning it, my goodness, if we just own the fact that we're not perfect and we give space for ourselves to mess up and space for others to mess up because we own it and then we try to correct it to the best of our ability, that goes a long, I would almost rather do that than perfection because none of us can live in that. And the weight of perfection is heavy.
Yes. So well said. All right. So I think I have one last question around this is how do you know that it's really time to pay attention to strategy to ensure that it really is informing this decision-making, moving you towards where you want to go? How do you know it's time to pay attention?
I think there are a couple of indicators to that. One of the indicators that I've seen is when it kind of feels like maybe the business is outgrowing me. So I don't really have my arms all the way around it. You know what I mean? There are areas that I either don't know or I feel confused in. Let's say I'm not sure why we are having so many people join my program, or I'm not sure where the money's going, or there's just something in the company, if we're looking at it from a company perspective, that I can't quite get my arms around. A second one is, I think we're seeing some of this now with this threat of a recession coming. I think a lot of people are starting to go, perhaps I'm in a really great place, but I don't know how I got here. And I don't know if I can duplicate or replicate this. So I don't know how to make it happen again. Some may think that they've gotten to a place maybe by luck, or maybe because a lot of things just kind of converged and it worked out for them. So I think if we don't know how we got where we are, it's very hard to know how to get where we're going. So at any point that there is either confusion, lack of understanding, or another, I guess, kind of a hallmark would be when you are repeating the same things, but you're wanting something different. They say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Mm-hmm. But I do think that sometimes we're doing some of the same things. There's the saying that says you can't get to a different level of thinking with the same thinking that got you here. Like mm-hmm. You've got to think differently. But when you know that you need to think differently and you don't know how to think differently, it's time to employ some strategy.
That was so clear. Do you mind saying that again?
I don't know if I can, but let's try.
Okay.
I said, when you know that you need to change or to do something different and you don't know how to do it, like you know something needs to change, but you don't know what you need to do to get there, that's time to employ strategy.
So crystal clear right there. So that is I just think that what Michele just gave us was such a perfect example. Anytime you find yourself in that place of like, something's got to change, but I don't know what it is. This is your clue. This is your, for me, it's like a buying signal. I always talk about buying signals and how I hear this ding, ding, ding in my head. This is a ding, ding, ding moment of like, oh, I just got a clue as to what to do here. Strategy. This is where I fall back on strategy, because strategy is going to move me in the direction that I want to go. So clear. Love
you know
it.
what, though, Nikki, I'll say is I think one of the most difficult pieces, and I'm going to say for women, I'm a woman, so I can speak to women.
Yes, you can.
I don't know, maybe guys find it difficult too, but I tend to see a lot of women struggle in really creating the vision of what they want, like being able to just state, this is where our business is going. This is what I want. This is the number of sales I want. This is the type of client that I want to work with. This is the, what I'm going to offer them. This is the price that I'm going to charge for that. Just being very clear in what that intentionality of strategy. I mean, strategy only works if we're intentional about the vision that we're creating. Then we have to be intentional about the steps to attain the vision, right? So strategy is actually identifying the vision and then creating goals and tasks and day-to-day ways to attain it. It's not separate from all of that. So the first job for all of us is to stop and dream, to stop and put down on paper, what does it look like in the future? And then build to that. Mm-hmm. But if we don't do that work, it does us no good. There's no strategy because we don't even know where we're going and who we're going to be and the legacy we're going to leave. That work, I do a podcast. I have one called Take Your Business on Vacation. And I go away for 3 to 5 days with me and my business. And I sit and I think and I pray and I look out over water and I vision where I want to go and what I want to be. I don't take anybody with me. My husband doesn't even get to go, just me and my business. And we go away and we plan. And then I come back refreshed with a very clear, here's where we're going. If you think about it, my GPS is set at that point. Mm-hmm. Now all we got to do is follow the map. And there are going to be a few detours, but at least I know where I'm going. I've packed correctly. Yeah. And hopefully we're going to get there.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. So as we wrap this up today, I have a few just little something extra for the audience to get to know you a little bit better.
That's a good question.
All right. Yeah. So I love to ask this question, especially people I don't know as well, is what is a guilty pleasure for you?
A guilty pleasure for me would be a bubble bath, a glass of red wine, and a piece of dark chocolate all at the same time.
Yes.
And a good book.
And a good book.
Alone, a good book, a bubble bath, a glass of red wine, and dark chocolate. That would be it.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. What's one thing most people would be surprised to learn about you?
I think most people know that I'm an avid reader, so that wouldn't be it. Most surprise, maybe that I love to go camping and no makeup, hair in a ponytail, just roughing it for a few days. Most people don't see me as a roughing it type, but I really enjoy that.
But you do. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's something exciting going on in your business right now?
Oh, wow. So we just started a new company, Metrique Solutions, and we just launched that a month ago. And it is a financial dashboard for businesses, service-based businesses from 0 to 5 million that help you actually, remember I talked about all those ways of learning, but it helps you actually see your financials to create strategy in your company to then attain it financially. So it's building out a strategy you can set your own KPIs or performance indicators and then measure to them. So I'm super excited about the launch of that new financial software.
I heard you talking about it on a podcast. It sounds amazing. And it's something that works in conjunction with what most people use, something like QuickBooks, right? It's like taking that information and visually laying it out so that you have a great representation to make decisions from. Am I even close?
You are exactly right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. It's so exciting. Okay. And how can people listening right now connect with you? What's your preferred way that people reach out and connect? Because I suspect people are going to want to know more about you.
Sure. Well, our podcast, Profit is a Choice. You can find that on all podcast catchers. To reach me, I'm on Instagram at Scarlet Thread ATL and as Metrique Solutions. And then Facebook is the same. And then people can always find me at scarletthreadconsulting.com or metriquesolutions.com. And my email is on both of those. So any of those ways works.
Awesome. Thank you. And Michelle's contact information will be in the show notes as well. So please connect if there was something that you particularly loved that she said, or it created a big aha for you. Please tag her and tag me on social media and share what it was, because it's always fun to hear what was the big takeaway as a listener. So we'd be delighted to hear that from you. Michele, thank you so much for your time and your expertise and sharing so candidly with us.
Nikki, thank you. And I really, really think you're a great interviewer. Great questions.
Thank you so
you
much.
don't often get that. So that was fun. You ask questions that are definitely different, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. I'm so, so grateful that you tune into the podcast, that you're loving the Mastering Excellence series. And if we haven't connected yet, let's connect. I tend to hang out on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and I am always delighted to hear from a listener. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again for being here, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.